Welcome to the Thousand Tales podcast. I'm your host, Conor Logan, and this is an exploration of the people of our town. We can't all have extraordinary celebrity lives, but we each have our own moments to shine. Today's guest is Joe Norris. Thank you for listening. So, Mr. Joe Norris of Suntree neighborhood in Newbury Park, California, you have the distinction of being my second interviewee on the Thousand Tales podcast, so thank you for joining me.
Excellent.
Cheers. It's waters, but it's cheers.
Cheers. Good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm happy to be a good spot to be number two.
Yes, right.
I've always had a running joke because, I work in the plumbing business. For a long time, I was a buyer of toilets, and I used to tell everybody my goal was to be the number one guy in the number two business, and so here I am, a number two. Yeah, you never leave the potty humor when you... No,
you should not.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you take a bunch of crap from your customers.
Oh, perfect. See, you're right. You're right in there with it.
Oh, that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been doing that?
Most of my adult life and a career somewhere in the plumbing and heating side, whether it was hydronic heating or tankless water heaters. Got family in the HVAC business. So it's really, again, something I've done. I've always worked in the sales or the purchasing side of things, but even, I don't know how it worked out. At one point, I had a job at West Marine. I think that was one of the first real corporate jobs I had.
Yeah.
And they wound up putting me at all things. I wound up as a buyer, which is what I wanted to do, and I wound up buying marine plumbing. Somehow I was like, well, that's really funny. And boat heaters, water heaters,
right.
Little faucets and things for yachts and boats. Until I left there for a sales job, and I kind of went back and forth from purchasing to sales, and I think I decided I liked the sales of it better. I like traveling and not being in a cubicle, and that's how I wound up where I am now with working for a water heater manufacturer.
Well, you're a personable guy too. Every time we chat, it's an easy conversation.
Yeah, thanks. Likewise, it's super fun.
Yeah, I imagine you do well in sales. That's great. When we want to go tankless, I know the man to talk to.
There you go.
That's good. Have you always been in where did you grow up?
I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, in the Silicon Valley, in San Jose. Actually, Los Gatos, right outside of San Jose.
Oh, yeah. I know.
But then we moved here 3 years ago to Newbury Park. It's really funny. And Amelia, as you know, is from my wife is from the East Coast. She's from Baltimore.
Yeah.
I met her when she was going to grad school in Santa Barbara, and it was funny because I was traveling, doing a sales gig in Santa Barbara. I met her of all things at a bar where there was live music. Seems appropriate, doesn't it? And then when we started dating, we got married, I decided that, at one point I was living in Santa Cruz at the time, which was really cool. I wound up moving over there pretty much as a teenager, like my first, apartment with a bunch of buddies, and going to school part-time over there and working part-time, surfing and hitting the beach and doing all the other stuff that a young man wants to do living by the coast. And so anyway, a few years later, I wind up kind of roaming around, and as I'm back in the Santa Cruz area, I meet Amelia, and she decides that Santa Cruz was just a really small town. And at that time, as I told you, I kind of bounced back and forth from sales to I had another sales job where I had to be leaving from San Jose Airport an awful lot. Mm-hmm. And if you know anything about the valley, there's only one little windy road that takes you from the valley over to the beach.
Yes.
And likewise. So to make a flight
60 or 50 or
17 actually.
17.
And not 17-mile drive, that's another windy one, but Highway 17 is this little, old stagecoach road that was eventually paved and turned into a 2 lanes in each direction highway, but it's not a major highway. It's a windy mountain road, and it's the only, and really there's other really strange alternate routes that are even weirder, but this is the main drag between the valley, as we would call it, and the beach. Mm-hmm. So every time I had to catch a flight, there was never a good time to fly because I had to. The longest part of my day was always just driving from the beach to get over the hill, as we called it,
right, into
the valley to the airport, and that got tiresome. So we decided to move into a home in South San Jose to be closer to the airport, and that's kind of where we. That's where actually our home that we bought in San Jose closed on the day that Charlotte was born. Wow. So if you can imagine, having a new baby, a fairly new job, moving into a new house. It was in Amelia's, with a 2-week-old kid moving into this, because it was 2 weeks after we closed that we actually moved in.
Yeah.
It was pretty chaotic for a while, but we spent 8 or 9 years there. And then, again, this job, doing a little bit more work in the LA area, we just decided it would be a good move, knowing that eventually I took this job that I have now in the water heater business again, and they said, hey, you got the whole West Coast, but eventually we think you're going to grow business and you're going to have just the Southwest or the Northwest. We're going to split it. And knowing how that went, I would much rather have Southern California, Las Vegas, Hawaii, and Arizona, which I have now, than Oregon, Washington, and the Bay Area, and Sacramento. Right. If I had that split to make, I made that bet. And right when I first took the job, we put our house up for sale in San Jose and moved here to Newbury Park. And it was kind of funny because as I mentioned, I met Amelia. We met each other in Santa Barbara in the 805 area code. Yeah. And we had talked about, do we go to Orange County? I lived there for a little while. She had friends that lived in L.A. What about San Diego? I kept thinking it's just Southern California, and somehow she found our house listed on, I think, Zillow or something. Send me this link. It says, I love this house. That's all it said. But I thought it sounds weird, but I thought there was some energy in her email. Right, yeah. Where I opened it and I called the realtor and made an offer on the house without even seeing it.
Sight unseen?
Yeah. In fact, the first time I saw it, saw that house on Brisbane where we are now, was during the final inspection. I was like, well, if the home inspector said, you mind if I come in and take a look at it? They're like, what, you haven't seen it yet? And I was like, no, I saw pictures on the internet. It looks lovely. I just kind of had a feeling that if it was going to work out, it was going to work out. I mean, there's always, you know how the things are when you buy a house, right? It's kind of crazy when you get to, I didn't know. I thought maybe it was listed a little too high. The seller was kind of cool, but I didn't know him. I knew kind of who he was. Also in the music business, by the way. Yeah. And he was a lot younger. It's funny. I'm moving in with my family to the guy handed me the keys on the day that I moved in. It was this 24-year-old who I believe was moving into a different place and was doing a residency in Vegas, and so he left Newbury Park for whatever the reason was, but I was happy to take his place. And also that was kind of the vibe I got. I said, somebody plays music here and looks out over the hills and got this pool. This is perfect for us. It's great.
That's great.
And I am closer to LA, a hell of a lot closer than I was before. And so it's cool. I'm really digging what a great neighborhood. And then, the COVID thing happens a few years later when I feel like we're just getting the swing of things. And, thank God you had posted this whole thing about, hey, I'm just having a jam in the driveway. Come on over. And I think I told you about that time David was going nuts, my son. And he was wanting to, and he had been in a couple of little bands already and things that was all kind of falling apart because of social distancing. Nobody could be doing these concerts.
I bet he was losing his mind.
Totally losing his mind. Yeah. And then I'm kind of telling him,
all my bands are falling apart and they're just getting going.
Yeah. And I was kind of like, dude, you're 14. This is a temporary. But you know what it's like when you're a teenager. Right. I always think about that. High school was 4 years, and it felt like an eternity for some of us. Yes. Right. It was 4 stinking years. It was nothing.
High school feels as long in my memory as like my 30s.
Exactly.
Like 4 years and 10
it's like a
years.
Decade. And it's like, I hope it wasn't, but but so there I was trying to explain to him, this is just, it's something. And Amelia, once again, it's just amazing how she finds these things. I'm not on Nextdoor. I think I joined it, but every once in a while I get an email update about, Coyote was in my yard or something. And it's, that might be interesting. Let me see what happened, Right. And she sent me your link about, hey, we're just having some musicians show up. And she said, well, you and David. I was like, well, I'll ask for David because I know it's killing him. And I'm just kind of like I've always said, the living room legend, right? I'll pick up a guitar around 3 or 4 people or around the campfire and a face full of beers. And even David takes his music to a different level than I do, right? He really is into it. And he likes the ensemble jamming thing, you know? And it's amazing how far how he's come just doing this. It's been great.
It's amazing. Like like the flow now, God, we're 6 months into doing it.
Who thought?
And I know, right? I thought it was going to be, weeks, maybe a couple months or something like that and be over. And I made that kind of bet. We'll do it until this is over. And I've been trying to stick by it. And now it's just become a thing. And everybody expects it to happen.
Oh, yeah, no, you can't close it down now, man.
I can't, like just hearing it in your voice, you're like, can't close it down now. And I'm just like, yep, can't close it down now. And even if it's tough sometimes, if the week is tough or dealing with kids or we're getting back, the weeks around Labor Day and we're getting the first grader back into school on Zoom calls and it's just been like a bear of a week. But Friday comes and we set up and play and it's like, I explained it. I was just like, I told someone, I was like, it's like going to the gym. Like, sometimes you don't want to go to the gym.
Yeah, but you feel so good when it's over,
when
right?
you're done, you never regret having worked out, and I never regret playing music.
That's awesome. What a great thing that you, I mean, it's just really, really cool on so many levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've made so many friends doing it. It's like, I love this. To me, it's really funny because I busted my butt in my 20s to try to make it as an original musician. I toured my ass off. I booked my own tours. I remember telling people, I'm like, I'd send out 1,000 emails to book 20 shows, you know, and calling on the horn with people. And this is like, I had a cell phone and had email and internet, of course, but nobody texted yet or texted rarely. And there was no real there was MySpace.
Sure.
And that's it, but there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter.
Social
Instagram.
media hadn't really been even
matured.
a term yet, right?
Yeah. And so still the way to get things done was get someone on the phone. Yeah. Maybe email would be second, but everything was worked towards doing that. And I bust my butt. And, you know, I was so stoked when all of a sudden I started seeing some crowds grow, you know, playing hard rock, punk rock music, original band, sleeping in the van, you know, sleeping on people's floors in their houses. And you see maybe all of a sudden there's a few spots where we'd play and there'd be 20 people and we come back and play and there'd be 50 people and we'd come back and play. And a couple of these places we come back and play and all of a sudden, boom, there's 400 kids there.
Yeah.
And cause, you know, the last time we came through, 40 of those people, 50 people bought CDs and they ripped them down and shared the MP3s with all their friends.
Yeah. And
so everyone got stoked on it and they came back and saw us play. That would make you feel great. But that was so rare. There's just a few places where it kind of had the feeling of it exploding. And this, I'm I feel like I'm falling upstairs and still there's a bunch of people every week. Everyone's stoked. Everyone expects it. Now when I walk around the neighborhood, everyone's like, hey, Connor, you know, good jam Friday. See you next Friday. Or they're asking me to play a certain song or something like that. And it as my first grader would say, it fills my bucket.
That's really cool. And it fills so many other buckets in the neighborhood, right? That's what's really cool, right? It's like one big cistern that's just collecting all this water. Absolutely. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And it's, as you were mentioning, you know, and I think I think we've talked about this before, and I think you even mentioned it to David, that you were really focused, and you were doing the work, and you really thought you're going down that path of music, and obviously you still have that. But at some point you decided, I think if I heard you right, you kind of put a line in your head. It says, if I can't get to a certain lifestyle at a certain point, then I'm going to do something else.
No, you got a good memory. Yeah.
But you put in all that work and you were doing it all, and you know, it's amazing. It's such a crazy industry, business.
Yeah, I didn't move out to LA for music. I moved out to do consulting, and I had a big four consulting job out of college, and with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I'm working, and the .com bubble bursts right when I get hired, and there's no work, and so I look on Craigslist or Recycler, I think, and something like that, and get in a band. It's this crappy prog rock band, and then I'm looking, I'm sitting in downtown LA in the Mellon Bank building, and I look up and I see, prominent East Coast hardcore band looks for a drummer to complete West Coast lineup. I remember the exact title.
That's awesome.
Because it's such a firm thing in my mind. Read the whole thing, and it reminded me of this band I grew up loving called Shelter. And I was like, this would be amazing if it was them. I doubt it is. No way. And then I submit, the email, and I get the email back. It's this questionnaire. It's 8 pages long, all this different stuff. And if anybody out there knows this band Shelter, they know that their thing is that they're all Hare Krishna.
That's just a Krishna. Yeah.
They're all Krishna consciousness. They coined the term Krishna core.
That's so cool.
And so I responded back, and a lot of the questions were about spirituality and different stuff like that. And I remember sending it off and thinking wow, that'd be amazing if it was Shelter. Maybe, but no, man. And then 2 weeks go by, I didn't hear anything. I emailed back and said, I'm sure you found a drummer, but just in case you haven't, I'm very interested. Let me know. And I get a call right away, and it happens to be the singer, and he's this idol of mine. And I would go to see shows of Shelter playing on the East Coast, and I remember going to Asbury Park, to Warped Tour in '95, and screaming along every song and all stoked, and we had this great conversation, and he says, hey, can you try out? It was a Tuesday. He's like, can you try out on Thursday? And we decided on 3 songs, and I went, to the rehearsal spot. I remember my band's rehearsal spot was in the garage, just like we're in right now,
Yeah.
of my friend, of the guitar player in the crappy prog rock band that I ended up bailing on for Shell